Welcome back to our second and last day of this event, the Fiec Summit 2022, an event that has been addressing comprehensively green hydrogen and its specialties, highlighting its technical, scientific, market, and altogether aspects. We're going to begin our afternoon program comprised of two panels.
Well, with no further ado, let's start with our panel and let's introduce our lecturers.
I'd like to invite up here to the stage remotely. We'll have Mr. João Erineu, Compliance Director of the Automotive Group Stellantis, Mr. Francisco Magalhães from the Mitsui Caetano Bus Company, and Mr. Bill Eric from California Fuel Cell Partnership. Moderating our panel, I would like to invite you up here to the stage. We'd like to remind the audience that you can formulate written questions sent through our QR code and WhatsApp number. Let's remind the audience. You will find our QR code right here so that you can formulate your questions. I would like to inform our lecturers that each of you will have 15 minutes and to stay within our timeline. I ask that you pay attention to that time, and when we are 2 minutes away from ending each of your periods, I will let you know. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to be here with you, and I'd like to thank our lecturers, Bill Eric and Silvano, and Francisco Magalhães, some of whom are remotely with us, and also João Erineu. We're going to speak of a theme that is very relevant and pertains to green hydrogen, which is mobility. What is my closeness to mobility? My professional life began when I was 12 years old. I sold bus tickets, interstate bus tickets, from Cariri to other cities. It was a small bus company, and we made our money based on what we sold. It was a family company. It still works to this day. It suffered with this crisis, but it prevailed. In terms of mobility, we have Caetano Bus that will be a lecturer. It's a Portuguese company, and it manufactures buses that are fueled by hydrogen. Are cars better when they're fueled by hydrogen or electricity? We have an opinion. At the bus company, my brother who manages it, he wanted to implant electric buses, and we were left with this impasse because the routes were usually 400 kilometers long, and I thought that we needed to study the subject further in order to know if it was viable and test it. A small company can't afford to lose money invested, so we have to think a bit about the issue. My perception overall is that vehicles that are heavy or that have long paths to fulfill
And vehicles that runs only vehicles running only a few kilometers per day, we have the solution, the electrical solution viable. And comparing the electrical one with the hydrogen one, so the vehicle with hydrogen, it features a battery and a hydrogen tank, and the electrical one only a battery. So when we have 4 times more weight between both. That's why I did this comparison. So if you have a heavy vehicle, you know, going around a lot, it's better to use hydrogen. So there's some math to take the decision. And by the end of the panel, I would like to attest to confirm my assumptions, the assumptions I'm doing right here. So a round of applause to our lecturers here. So let's start with the lecture Mitsui Caetano Bus. Please, Mr. Francisco Magalhães from Mitsui Caetano. And please tell me if my assumptions are correct. I would like to congratulate Fiec Summit 2022 for this very nice event, and I would like to give a special word to Mr. João for introducing the theme and with the very valid assumptions as the moderator. I have here an image that I would like to share with you.
Apenas para seguir pouco de acompanhamento à minha.
Well, I think you can see my slides. Well, there's a video here just to illustrate.
A apresentação, não é? Sim, está na tela. Se olharmos para.
In 1874, Julius Verne introduced an important concept, a futurist concept. And today, Caetano Bus is a company partner with Toyota. Toyota owns a share, a quota of the company. And we have a strategy for electrical mobility. And you know, Caetano Bus, it's the biggest bus manufacturer in Portugal. We have a very strong relationship with Toyota. And effectively, in the last few years, Toyota and Caetano got jointly developed solutions and solutions between hydrogen and batteries. So Caetano stopped all the mobility development, urban mobility, the well-known the diesel buses, urban diesel buses. We have stopped everything, and now only hydrogen and electrical. Well, Toyota is partnered up with Caetano, not only in the institutional point of view, but also providing the logo, the Toyota logo, to products manufactured by Caetano Bus. So we have the brand, the symbol of Toyota, that is a great responsibility of our part. On the other hand, it's a new feature for the Toyota, providing the bodies for our buses. And Caetano effectively has 300 roughly solutions for mobility in operation, but it happens effectively in 30 cities in the world where we have zero-emission products.
Efetivamente mais de 30 cidades do mundo onde já existem produtos zero emissões da Caetano Bus.
We've developed the first vehicle battery, the first battery run vehicle in 2010.
assim, elétrica baterias. Em 2016,
and
fruto de todo o trabalho que estava a
and
ser
we have
feito
the
já
current
anteriormente,
SET
lançamos o primeiro
bus,
100% elétrico
the
com a
more
baterias, que é o
current one,
nosso atual
and
objetivo.
at the same time
Ao mesmo tempo,
we've
nós desenvolvemos soluções, como sendo um chassi elétrico,
we
que
are giving
disponibilizamos a
solutions for all
fabricantes
the
de
manufacturers.
autocarros
As
do mundo
consultants or
que queiram
partners,
ter a sua
we
solução
can
de
enter
serviço
as
elétrico
investors, we
e que
can
não
enter
tenham ou a capacidade de fazer investimento ou
operational
que não tenham no
partners
seu pipeline
for
este
other
projeto de
companies
investimento no
for these
desenvolvimento
in this
próprio de
field.
mobilidade
In
elétrica.
2019, we've launched in
Consequência desta
collaboration with
experiência
Toyota the
dos
first
autocarros elétricos a
Caetano
baterias em 2016, já em
moved
2019
Caetano
nós
bus
lançamos em
moved by
colaboração com a
the
Toyota o primeiro
hydrogen cell.
autocarro Caetano
It's a Toyota
a
cell.
célula de
It's
combustível hidrogênio.
a
A
stack
célula de
from
combustível hidrogênio,
Toyota. And
muitas vezes
effectively,
referida
as I've
como célula da
explained
Toyota, naturalmente,
before,
é
in
uma stack da
2020,
Toyota,
we've
e
associated the
efetivamente,
brand
eu explicava anteriormente,
of
já
zero
em
emission
2020,
Caetano vehicles with the
associamos
logo
as
mark
marcas e
from
partilhamos a
Toyota.
marca dos veículos zero emissões com a Toyota.
Something important to highlight about the vehicle, battery
Um aspecto
run
importante,
vehicles.
temos também, como eu referia, temos uma solução
That's the
elétrica de
concept, the
baterias
basic concept about zero
e
emissions
temos também um
from
conceito
these
de tudo o que é a base
chassis
da
buses,
mobilidade elétrica zero
the
emissões,
chassis buses, and
do
with
ônibus
the
chassi, que
the same
partilha
chassis for
essencialmente
the
a mesma
hydrogen cell
plataforma,
or
tanto
for the
para o produto
battery run
elétrica baterias como para o
engines.
produto a hidrogênio.
And now I will stop
Este é
the
o chassi
presentation
elétrico.
just to elaborate
Se me
better.
permite, eu só vou aqui interromper a apresentação um pouquinho para poder
And I
conversar um pouco
was
mais sobre
saying
este
that
projeto.
Caetano,
Efetivamente, como eu estava a dizer, a Caetano tem. Eu peço desculpa que a apresentação perdia.
well, I'm just trying to find another presentation. So
Portanto, efetivamente, eu interrompi um pouco a apresentação.
on 9
mas
minutes
não
left.
consigo mesmo sem a apresentação. Efetivamente,
Well, elaborating what our moderator said in the beginning.
efetivamente, respondendo
Today
bocado
we
àquilo que a
see
João
the
introduziu,
mobility,
efetivamente,
the
hoje em
batteries
dia
and
nós
hydrogen
olhamos para a
mobilities
mobilidade a
as two
baterias, elétrica a baterias
perspectives.
e a mobilidade
So
a
both
hidrogênio com
technologies,
duas perspectivas muito interessantes.
they can be
Se me
interchangeable.
perguntarem, efetivamente, as duas tecnologias não se irão, de certa maneira, substituir. Efetivamente, ambas irão coexistir.
Yes, but with distinct
Sendo que
purposes.
o alcance da
And
aplicação de
it
cada
doesn't make
uma das
sense
tecnologias
to
será
have
distinta.
for a
Não faz
company
sentido, por exemplo, para um
with a
operador
small
que tenha uma
fleet
frota relativamente
and
pequena e que tenha uma
small-sized
autonomia diária de
operations to
operação
implement
relativamente pequena,
hydrogen run vehicles. The efforts
autocarro de
would
hidrogênio.
not be feasible
Efetivamente, o esforço que ele vai
economically
desenvolver,
speaking
será
in terms of
naturalmente um esforço
ROI
que não permitirá
also.
que
But
ele
for
tenha o retorno do seu investimento tão rapidamente.
road, for
Mas se olharmos para aquilo que é a operação de rodoviário, por exemplo, se olharmos para aquilo que é a
for
operação de
road
rodoviário,
operations
nós
around
não poderemos
600
ter
kilometers
rodoviário a operar com autonomias
inter-municipality
inacreditáveis da
transportation
ordem dos 600
in Brazil,
quilómetros mínimo
for example.
entre pontos de situação em cidades, nomeadamente no Brasil,
We
mas
could think
a ser
about
operados
battery
com
run
autocarros a bateria.
vehicles also,
Efetivamente, o que temos
but
que ter em consideração é que a
we would
nível de
need a
operação,
lot of batteries,
ou teríamos autocarro
and
a
it doesn't mean
baterias
more batteries,
cheio de
and more
baterias
batteries
com
not
autonomia,
always translate in
não
more
é
autonomy,
garantido que
and
mais
we
baterias
would need
signifique mais autonomia.
to deal with the
Efetivamente,
weight
teríamos
of
depois
the
peso
overall
exagerado
weight
dentro do
of the
próprio
bus,
produto
the
único
chassis
e
and the
que faria
batteries,
que toda
and
a
then we would need
funcionalidade
to
dos autocarros
assess
rodoviários hoje
the
poderá ser
productivity. And
garantido.
there's another important
Se olharmos para
issue.
aquilo
So
que é normalmente
the
a
load,
operação de um
the
operador, também há outra
recharge
questão importante,
time,
que
for
é
example,
o tempo de carregamento
37
de um autocarro de
kilograms
hidrogênio
of
para encher, por
hydrogen
exemplo,
we
37,5
need to
kg
fill
ao etanol
a
ou
tank.
de hidrogênio em
So it
média,
takes 10
algo
minutes.
sensivelmente
If we
equivalente a
consider
9
electrical
técnicos.
buses,
Se
we are
compararmos
talking
com
about
aquilo que
4
é hoje em dia
hours
a
of
operação dos veículos
recharge,
elétricos, o
electrical
carregamento do
recharge.
ônibus
So
elétrico
big
no limite vai demorar
fleets,
4 horas.
big distances,
O que é que isto quer dizer?
operating
Efetivamente, para
and
grandes
even
frotas
in cities with great autonomy of the distances, and then some not very good road mesh, it would be interesting to use hydrogen. If it was, if we're talking about an operation that is small and that allows the buses to stop sometimes, a few times during the day, so batteries would be better, more feasible. We have 18 with 18 meters, and the others with an articulation of 24 meters of length. And these products, they demand a level of consumption and autonomy to justify the hydrogen mobility within. Because as I told you, when we put more batteries in the bus, it not always it's not always translatable in more autonomy, and also we need to deal with more weight. So this equation must be very well balanced to guarantee productivity. And talking about hydrogen and zero emission mobilities, we need to say that the projects must be developed as a tripartite initiative, so manufacturers, users, and investors. And we have a paradigm change in terms of mobility. So the manufacturers used it to buy the chassis and the body and the engine, and the operation was only to fill the tank with liquid fuel and then put the buses in operation. Effectively, in this moment, we need to dimension the operations and then assess the best solution in terms of feasibility. And and sometimes we need to calculate the figures of the investments, and investments in batteries, they must be very well analyzed, because sometimes it's difficult to have the return on investment in a desirable time. And talking about autonomy, hydrogen in our vehicles moved with fueled with hydrogen, so we can have an autonomy of 4 to 500 kilometers, and with good weather conditions, not too hot weather. And in the months of the year with more temperate climate, the autonomy gets a better yield. Well, and I was saying mobility, hydrogen mobility will not replace battery electrical mobility, but it will allow a reduction on emissions, because effectively the vehicles with batteries, they have certain hinders in terms of autonomy, and the hydrogen will complement this for 24/7 operations, in which the autonomy level demanded is very high. And in terms of infrastructure, we have investments in infrastructures today in the business as today in it's a burden of the operator, or this investment is diluted in solutions of mobility, allowing the operator not to have an initial great impact on capex, but on the other hand, an OPEX expense, an OPEX increasement. And also in terms of energy, of supply, it's important to centralize every supply operation in one facility, and it means that all investment in infrastructure will be in charge of the hydrogen provider, and effectively all that effort in creating the infrastructure, bottom line, it's more feasible to the operator. So literally, there's something important to mention in this situation, to look at the infrastructure of the cities.
situação é também olharmos para a questão da infraestrutura das próprias cidades. Se pensarmos que
Well, we have limitations in terms of charging batteries. If we have these limitations in some cities and high demand on electricity over the grid, so the hydrogen will mitigate the pressure, and then the operators, the utilitarian operators, can have this pressure released. And on the other hand, the operators will have more autonomy and more flexibilization in terms of an alternative fuel. And we have also a question, a matter. It's also a matter of space for storing hydrogen, because the chargers and the suppliers, the electrical suppliers, they occupy a great area, a huge area, whilst hydrogen points of supply, they do not occupy the same space, and the infrastructure is simpler. And the infrastructures will be held in remote zones of Brazil, and there would not be a dependence on electricity. And buses models we have are buses with low floor, with a full separation between the passenger zone and the hydrogen system, and this is a great safety feature. The hydrogen bus is prepared for safety in terms of leaks and shocks and fire potential. These buses, they have all the safety features embedded. Well, wrapping up, I would like to say that hydrogen will work as a fundamental complementary energy for mobility within the transition, the energy transition, and regarding also controlling the emissions. It's not a matter of, it's not much more economical comparing to batteries, but we have different purposes, different applications for each solution. And I reiterate my gratefulness of being here. Thank you very much.
Resta-me agradecer a todos. Muito obrigado.
Congratulations to Mr. Francisco Magalhães, and thank you for answering, responding to our invitation, and thanks to having approached my assumptions and all clarified.
Eu, a certa altura parei a apresentação, porque é mais fácil falar do que estar a seguir uma apresentação.
And now we have Mr. Silvano Pozzi, Director for Ballard, talking about combustion cells. Thanks for responding to our invitation. Well, for starters, some words about Ballard. It's a company working with PEM fuel cells and fuel cells modules, recognized for all the global industry for its 45 years of existence. In 2008,
eu desembarquei aqui em Fortaleza com... Oi. O tempo aqui, por favor, para... não, eu tenho tempo livre. Não, você já aproveita. Você já ganhou aí minuto aí. É assim que se faz negócio.
In 2008,
em 2008 eu desembarquei com uma equipe do governo canadense.
Landed with some global consultants from Canada and Fortaleza to try to explain to the former governor Cid Gomes, and that he was sit in a gold mine he was sit over a gold mine, and his face expression, well, his reaction, I saw in his face like a team from Mars, from aliens, had just landed in Fortaleza. And these days, now I see the information running around very quickly, and sometimes I'm learning about hydrogen. Well, me in my position, I learn a lot, and so I'm glad it's happening. And my challenge is to make fuel cells easy to understand. I will give you lots of examples from my company, but we have lots of companies with no doubt competition is opened and open has competition is open, and we have good examples, but I prefer to talk on behalf of my company, obviously. I prepared some points here that will let very clear the situation, what is the state of art of the technology, and where we are and where we are going to. I think it will clarify lots of doubts from the audience. First thing is, well, let's clarify something. The vehicle with a fuel cell, it's an electrical vehicle, a vehicle that produces electricity on board. All these vehicles are electrical, okay? But let's go deeper. We're trying to replace, we're trying to mitigate pollution and to mitigate inefficiency. And the true fuel for the future is the electron. The electron, the particle, makes possible the efficiency. It's not worth it. It's not possible to address the problem without efficiency. And because of the electron, the fuel is the electron. And since we need to manipulate the electron, hence hydrogen. How can you bring a green electron from Australia to Brazil? The green electron in Brazil go into Australia or elsewhere. You need, so to move this electron, we have hydrogen as the means. And well, bottom line, everyone did the math, and I don't need to repeat it to you. Distribution, everyone talked about it. I don't need to explain further. And now let's talk about other things. Let's talk about the advantage of fuel cell electric vehicles comparing to the other one, to the battery one. Which are our advantages? So this is constant operation, regardless the environment, hot, cold, clean, dirty. So the fuel cell works anyway. So secondly, we have this is a good option where you have a great demand for energy, and in third place, it's very quick to be refueled. And this is a direct replacement, a good option. For example, one bus with fuel cell replaces one bus moved with diesel, powered by diesel. Well, and which one is the best technology? Oh, it's not the right question. They're complementary. And if we're talking about a low consumption vehicle, battery will be just okay. If we talk about a high level of energy consumption vehicle, you need the fuel cell to have this 1:1 ratio. And And we have other variables like the cost of the hydrogen, because the physical equation determines the position. But we have an economic equation depending on the hydrogen value. If hydrogen is cheap, more fuel cells. If the hydrogen is expensive, less fuel cells. State of art. So let's understand what is a fuel cell system. Very simple thing. Well, we have that cell unit. It is repeated various times. It's composed by what people call electrode and bipolar plates. It's a stack, a fuel cell stack. And this fuel cell stack, it can work alone, or it can be assembled in groups. And we call it a stack array. And we have a lifespan that is ideal for the work. You put the stack array and the BOP and the SW and all the controls, and you have what we call stack, a fuel cell module. You provide hydrogen and then you get electricity to run the engine. That's why Ballard is a world leader regarding all the components of the stack and the stack itself. Let's get this example. A fuel cell lorry, it's an actual truck. You have the fuel cells doing what the diesel engine would do. You have the hydrogen storing. You have the electrical axles and the platform, some other components, and then you have a lorry moved, powered by the fuel cell. The same thing would be a car or a bus. The fundamental element here is the fuel cell stack. And this stack shall be designed for a certain purpose. For example, a small car stack is different from a lorry stack. And the stack has some elasticity in its operation. You can use it with high efficiency, or you need to regulate it to have high power density. One thing compromises the other. It's just laws of physics. It's physics. So you need to have flexibility to serve different purposes and with all the attributes related. So we are evolving a lot, and there's not a technical barrier anymore when we're talking about the stacks of fuel cells. So no technical issues. It's a commercial product. So some examples to use, sometimes we call them fuel cell engines, fuel cell stacks, arrays. We have an elasticity of product design very differently from an internal combustion engine. You know, they look like all the same. They just get bigger or smaller. But here you have a different complexity. So, and in the middle you see the most advanced fuel cell. This engine, it beats a diesel engine in all its features, all of them with the advantage of being zero pollution, being built with materials that are energy friendly from the very beginning of their production. And just to show you how the system integrates inside a lorry, for example, where you have a solution occupying the same space of the conventional diesel engine. And when you apply the knowledge, you see values, efficiency, impossible to be achieved by any other combustion technology. So see the results you can obtain. You have here a truck with an autonomy of 1,000 kilometers, and this lorry has a 63% of efficiency max, an average efficiency roughly of 55%. These are numbers impossible to be achieved by any means based on burning something, based on the combustion of any fuel. Well, applications, due to its characteristics, try to guess. So the intense energy applications are adopting this technology in the first place. So buses and coaches, so lorries, trains, vessels, all this start to move with high speeds and trying to adopt the technology. We have an example of buses in Brazil, for instance, as our fellow panelists from Caetano. Well, it's a commercial product, so programs of 3 buses, and they have been increased in numbers, and then people are getting fleets even each day bigger. And we have these lorries and so heavy vehicles operating in Los Angeles port. The ports are trying to eliminate completely their emissions in their transportation, in their surroundings. It's happening a lot, and technology can provide this type of application. So trains following the same rationale, and vessels, for the same reasons, taking advantage of the stage of the technology. And finally, electricity generation with modules going from 5 to 2 megawatts of power being possibly combined to achieve 40, 50, 60 megawatts. All commercial products, relatively expensive. Let's take a good look at it. So what is hindering the mass adoption of technology? Well, first of all, infrastructure for hydrogen. I don't need to comment. It's been exhaustively discussed. So we need to make hydrogen cheaper. All the classic elements in terms of durability, robustness, efficiency, reliability. So these things are are all clarified. And now we need to address manufacturing scalability and costs. And how much? The $1 million question. Well, I'm in the 8th generation. I started in first generation when I arrived at Ballard 25 years ago with the cost of $23,000 per kilowatt. And now we are selling these for $800 per kilowatt. I have the 9th generation under development that will bring us to $350, and also in the research part, and entering the 10th generation for the next decade, where we'll have $100 cost per kilowatt. The question was, if I had a diesel engine being produced in these volumes, because with this volume to arrive at this price, this is a miracle. It would be rational enough to persuade everyone. So see, technology is advancing a lot, costs are decreasing, adoption is ramping up, ramping up, and we are overburdened in terms of production. The challenge is to accelerate the manufacturing to meet the demand. And the technology of the fuel cells is getting simpler, easier to use, more dense and more flexible, etc., etc., etc. It means this is not a future product, it's today's product, and will reach even much more um, future. In the future, it will be even more technological. And thank you for the opportunity to explain this a little bit to you. So thank you, Silvano. Very nice lecture on fuel cells, and each day more we get more expert. We get more knowledge about the theme. We have Monica Panik, expert on mobility. She asked me to be here as a moderator, but I'm learning with Monica a lot. Well, just a minute before the next lecture, I would like to remind you that the fourth lecture will be held in English, and we have, for those who need equipment for simultaneous translation. So the fourth lecture will be held in English, and the equipment is available by the door, by the entrance door. Now we'll have João Irineu from Stellas. It's an honor to have you here. You have 15 minutes. Please, it will be our pleasure. Can you hear me? All right, okay. Yes, so thank you. Thank you for the kind invitation. It's very important to participate in this discussion, relevant discussion for the future. And we're going to talk about Stellantis and how we see decarbonization in our region. So Stellantis is a company, it's a fusion resulted from Fiat Chrysler and Peugeot Citroën groups. And after the fusion, it's the first Latin America company, fourth in the world, and 6.1 million vehicles per year. Lots of brands. We're talking about Jeep, Dodge, Chrysler, Citroën, Fiat, DS, Alfa Romeo, Maserati, and others. Many brands, iconographic brands. So Stellantis features history, features a background from the 1970, and with the brand Fiat in the city of Betim, state of Minas Gerais, in inaugurating another axis. So far from, well, differently from São Paulo industrial environment, and we Betim Powertrain Complex in 2000, in 2001 Porto Real Peugeot Citroën. We have in Betim a business plant as a center, as a headquarter, but we have laboratories throughout the country, like in Porto Real, in the Rio de Janeiro, and in Goiânia, the Jeep complex in the state of Pernambuco, inaugurated in 2015. And this is a summary of our background in Brazil. These are the models we produce in the region. So we have the Renegade, Compass, and Commander from Jeep. So Fiat, we have Pulse, Nova Strada, Argo, Kronos, and Toro. Mobi, Fiorino, and Scudo. It's a light commercial vehicle. Peugeot, we have the 208 and Expert in the other one, 2008. And the Citroën, we have the Cactus and Jumpy. So we are launching new models in this very year, the second semester. Talking about the Betim, I think a hydrogen Betim plant. I think the hydrogen has space with plants, and we have three big plants. First one is from Betim with 16 million vehicles produced, 5 models in production, where we have our engineering pole, the nervous system of our company. We have here in Betim with 1,500 engineers, and with a complete infrastructure to produce a car from the design, from the market research, passing through the design, and then all the chassis and engine produced and validated in Brazil, and to the end of the delivery to the vendors. And we are very proud of it. This is the Jeep plant in Goiânia, in the state of Pernambuco, in the northeastern region of Brazil. We have 4 models produced with 15,000 direct job positions and more than 60,000 indirect. We have also connections with parts, with aftermarket parts providers, and this is the other facility in 1.7 million vehicles produced, 5,000 job positions. So in the automotive industry is facing lots of challenges, and challenges that sum up and make cars as an object with a very complex degree of engineer. We have 10 pillars here from the first one in the left part is decarbonization, mentioned in lots of presentations, and we have vehicle safety, and passively and actively. So the greenhouse gas effects, and I'm not talking about the greenhouse gases. I'm talking about the carbon monoxide and hydrocarbonate and NOx, so nitrogenated gases. And it depends on the regulations of each country. And advanced manufacturing, logistics, each day more complex. And in the bottom part, we have autonomous vehicle technologies as an entrant, connectivity and big data. Big data, the car starts to be gets connected to the cloud, and we have this dynamic possibility of an object storing, uploading and downloading data. For example, it can start the fuel filling before even arrive in the gas station. And also user experience, it's another pillar, how the customers are using the car, so the interaction, customers' interaction with the vehicle, it's been changing in the past, the recent years. Cybersecurity, because of the connectivity, so cybersecurity is a necessary science for car protection. Because, for example, the wheel is electric, the brakes are electric, the transmission and all the vital functions, they need to be monitored and protected regarding the hackering, and in 5G infrastructure to allow this massive amount of this data to be transmitted. I'm sorry to say that we've lost audio. We've lost audio, unfortunately. Oh, audio's failing, and we're trying to see if we address this technical issue. Thank you for your understanding. So I would suggest that let's get, if you have time, so just an announcement to the audience, to the in-person audience here, to get the radio receivers for simultaneous translation. So please, we apologize for this technical issue and we will return as soon as possible. Well, Silvano, I will address a question to you. Well, I think to our staff. Our staff is informing that we have our lecturer back. So let's get back to the slide. So did you get my 5G part? Cybersecurity, okay. So with this enormous amount of data, cars are needing to interact. needing to deal with. It's important to protect the vehicle from hacking. So that's why cybersecurity is important for various and several levels of safety. And obviously, to support this data in terms of speed, internet speed, 5G is paramount. So these 10 items are a set of requisites that we need to include in the today's car, and so cars got much more complex these days. And without this, and for this, we need to establish an innovation ecosystem and R&D ecosystem that allows us to accelerate the product development. And this acceleration, it demands the participation of providers, public policies, and we need governmental agencies, fundamental for that. The research institutes, universities, innovation hubs. So Stellantis today is connected with dozens of institutions and agencies to help us to develop our new technologies. It helps to strengthen the relationships between companies, academia, and government towards the country development regarding automotive industry. Now I will talk about decarbonization. This left graphic with some numbers, and it's data from Boston Consulting. In the bottom line, we see megatons of CO2 emitted by these countries/regions, and also the profile of those emissions. So Brazil is not the greater emitter, but the profile is totally different. However, we have been participating in regulatory and regulations elaboration for commercial light vehicles in towards decarbonization. So we've held and we participated in governmental programs for the decarbonization on commercial light vehicles. And as we see here, the light blue shows the value of the emissions, what they represent in the energy generation sector, only energy generation, okay? We observe that countries like China, United States, and Europe, they emit CO2 for the energy production, because of the energy production. In Brazil, we have only 17% of the total amount. We have land use in the upper part, and then farming, agribusiness, and then energy, and followed by transportation, representing 13% of the CO2 emissions. Within the transportation sector, we have a division, we have a frame, we have a submenu, and the cars plus LCVs. They make 41% of the 13%. Trucks, they represent roughly 46%. So between buses and trucks, amongst those, we have the greatest emissions within the 13% of the transportation sector. And we have a different profile comparing to Europe, China, and the United States. And in Brazil, evidently, we have a great participation in land use and in farming. So agribusiness. We have a commitment of reducing by 50% the emissions, reduce emissions by 50% by 2030. So resolutions from COP26. So and Brazil got ahead with this clean energy matrix, and the use of this energy is predominantly industrial and for transportation. And here we observe in the left part how much our energy matrix is clean. So the renewable is composed, so hydric plus sugarcane biomass, ethanol, biodiesel, wind power, photovoltaic power. So renewable sources under development but ongoing. And so Stellantis goals are to decarbonize totally by 2038. So it's like tomorrow, and we need to reduce dramatically by 2030 and to get zero emission by 2038. So we have these ramp down graphic dotted curve showing in which sectors we are reducing. So part of our goal will be fulfilled through renovation of our products by 2038, and the other part, it's about energy management within our production lines. Supply chain, we have a park of providers. A car features 4,000 components, and we have several providers. And it's important to work the decarbonization within the whole chain. Our manufacturing process, we have a demand for energy, natural gas, and hydrogen can be a player. And usage. Well, talking about usage, we have these decarbonizations, the CO2 emissions getting lower. So we have the engine and ethanol. It's important for light commercial vehicles, as mentioned by and cars. And we are trying to improve ethanol and using the flex system in a more intelligent fashion through more technologies for efficiency. And we have the hybrid with ethanol vehicles and low emissions vehicles and FAV, BEV, and fuel cell. And in the future, to develop an ethanol-based fuel cell. Well, today we do not have a single solution. We are departing from an internal combustion engines, ethanol and diesel and gasoline, and then we are moving to fuel cell vehicles. So passing through biomethane and hybrid solutions, and we need to combine those possibilities, thinking about the cost, the equation cost, benefit, environment, to find the exact solution for the exact context. Well, with this, I finish my presentation. I will be available for the Q&A. Thank you very much. We thank Mr. João Irineu.
Ótima apresentação aí. E mais uma vez obrigado por atender nosso convite. E agora a próxima.
Now we have the presentation from Bill Eric. He is the director for the very important program in California, the hydrogen mobility in California. Now we have it recorded, and please play it for us. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to participate today in the FIEC Green Hydrogen Summit. I wish I could be there in person, yet really pleased to be able to provide this presentation and hopefully help accelerate all our hydrogen and fuel cell vehicle progress globally. My name is Bill Elric, and I'm the Executive Director here at the California Fuel Cell Partnership. I'm going to present today on hydrogen and fuel cell vehicle market in California and give an overview of how we got here today. The partnership has operated for over 2 decades, focused originally on if this technology could be brought to market, and now more on how to accelerate market rollout and achieve the environmental, economic, and energy independence benefits the technologies can bring to society. Our mission is to establish the technology as a thriving, sustainable market, and we do that by actively establishing the conditions for market success, by winning over officials and the public on the benefits of the technology, and by being a trusted resource and forum for both our members and the public. We collectively bring together the village to help identify the different market development challenges and then work together to overcome them. These are our members. We have a really diverse group of government, infrastructure, vehicles, supply chain, and other stakeholders all working collaboratively together to advance the market. Our role as an organization is to bring together all of these stakeholders as equals to ensure that each of them and all of society can benefit from the successful deployment of these technologies. Based on our success here within California and the need to ensure others can leverage and learn from our experience, we are now undergoing our own transition to become a national nonprofit, essentially doing what we do today, but now across North America. So be on the lookout in the coming months for our formal public announcement of this big change and the details to come. So where are we today? Well, in California, the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle retail market is open and real, with regular citizens purchasing among a few different fuel cell vehicle models, fueling at public hydrogen stations, and carrying out their lives just as they did previously within their petrol vehicles. Today, there are over 14,000 light-duty fuel cell vehicles across California, most of these located in our urban metro centers. They fuel at over 50 public retail stations, and these are located in typical gas stations right next to petrol pumps. And we have over 100 more hydrogen stations in development. Fuel cell buses have also been in real-world service for nearly 2 decades, and they're becoming more popular as the state's transit agencies begin their full transition to 100% zero-emission vehicle by the next decade. And while being the most recent to be introduced, fuel cell trucks, though, are rapidly being deployed across the state, and they're able to leverage the experience and the lessons learned from both the light-duty and the fuel cell bus operations from before them. So the retail hydrogen and fuel cell vehicle market in California is open, is real, and is expanding. So how did we get to this point here in California? It really started and remained viable throughout because of very strong leadership, especially from the state of California's government agencies. For decades, California has led the United States in clean transportation activities overall and consistently provided both sticks and carrots to reach its targets. A small handful of the state's transport regulations are shown here just as a sampling, and it's really to emphasize that the state is now transitioning to 100% ZEVs as quickly as possible. And we recognize that it takes every zero-emission vehicle we can get, both battery and fuel cell vehicles, to reach the ambitious targets we have. And we need to see these in cars, trucks, and buses. We need every ZEV we can get, and we're doing everything we can to get them on the road. So that strong leadership in the good times, as well as weathering the harder times and the more challenging times, has become very critical to our success today. Another key to our success here in California has been keeping stakeholders aligned and working together towards common visions and objectives. The Hydrogen Council calls this having a North Star to guide activities. And the partnership here has survived and even thrived by providing a variety of collaborative vision and strategy documents on top of things our individual members, government, and industry produce themselves. Again, common visions to guide everyone. I want to highlight two of the more recent and important documents we put out recently. The first is 2018, Our Fuel Cell Vehicle Revolution, which described the targets and the strategies for reaching a tipping point for the light-duty fuel cell vehicle deployment in California. That means, how do we get to the point where we move beyond subsidies and early support and made a successful market? Then again, last year, we just released the other document on the right side here of the screen, which is our fuel cell electric truck vision, which outlined how we'd successfully start the heavy-duty truck market in California and the neighboring states, recognizing transport goes through borders rather rapidly. These and other reports can be found on the resources page of our website if you're interested. There's also two other activities I think are really worth noting here on this slide, or at least around this slide. Late last year, the U.S. Department of Energy announced over $8 billion to fund hydrogen hubs in the United States. This funding has ignited an incredible interest in hydrogen across the country. And while not everyone will get that funding support, It has gone a great deal or gone very far already in showing new partnerships develop, new projects, and the general momentum for hydrogen across North America. Since before this announcement, the momentum for hydrogen is unquestionably stronger and more solid than ever before. So we're personally helping different hubs, not just here in California, which is working on a statewide hub proposal, but other hubs, because again, our national role and the desire to see everyone win and deploy these technologies. To that national stage, we're also working on a national hydrogen mobility strategy as part of our national expansion. That strategy is looking at establishing a heavy-duty fuel cell fueling network across the U.S. to become the backbone for mobility and other hydrogen infrastructure. We want to layer over that then the light-duty fuel cell vehicle and station in metro areas based on our California rollout experience, and then overlay localized hydrogen production and distribution to tie it all together. We believe this national strategy will help accelerate hydrogen and fuel cell deployment nationally, as well as help connect the developing hydrogen hubs and other hydrogen end uses across the country. So to succeed, these technologies must also become everyday typical products, seamless into our everyday lives. That has to be done by making sure the technology adapts to and even thrives in the real world. This includes everything from ensuring basic certifications to codes and standards and making sure they're all in place and gives us the foundations we need to build the market. We need to make sure the fuel is cost competitive and the fuel and stations are readily available everywhere people expect to see them. Essentially, we need to make these products as easy, cheap, and exciting to use as traditional vehicles, or even better. So to do that, we need to reach cost competitiveness and establish a sustainable, self-sufficient marketplace really as quickly as we can. We recognized several years ago that we needed to adjust what was very generous government support, but not really based on building the market. They were subsidies. They weren't market building subsidies. So we worked together collaboratively on a few changes in how this co-funding was provided. We also did some tweaks to a program here called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. And in that, in the turn of one funding cycle, we witnessed a dramatic progress towards those cost reduction and station deployment goals. We saw in that transition a market-focused approach resulted in larger and more capable stations at a fraction of the cost. They also included a swing from very government-heavy subsidies to one that relied more on the private investment side of the equation. And we did all this while reaching nearly 100% renewable hydrogen along the way. So really good stuff. Market transformation focus is a big deal here in California. And then incredibly exciting news, following up from our Fuel Cell Revolution document from a few years ago. Last year, the state's Air Resources Board dug in deeper into the self-sufficiency question and put out a report that said, with continued investment in the California light-duty fuel cell and hydrogen market, we could have this market in California self-sufficient by 2030, meaning a full transition away from subsidies and moving into this really market-driven opportunity. This is especially exciting as I believe it's the first globally identified pathway to sustainability for any ZEV market in the world, including battery electric vehicles or even other hydrogen and fuel cell applications. It's also important for reaching sustainability in the light-duty market here in California because then it opens doors and accelerates progress for heavy-duty and other hydrogen applications across the US and even globally, because this is clearly a global market and we are now seeing more and more opportunities for leveraging that. And then finally, California reached this point in the market because we realized no single entity or sector could build this market alone. It requires collaboration and coordination across a host of stakeholders, all supporting and building upon one another's success. We have to build this market before we can successfully compete in this market. Our public-private partnership was built on this cooperation, and I believe it is as important now that we work together locally, regionally, and globally to make those opportunities come true. This is partly why we are expanding across North America, and why I'm really excited to be able to participate here today with you. So with that, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to working with you all again in the near future, and I'll say obrigada.
A round of applause to Mr. Bill Eric. So very well done. To whom we thank for this excellent presentation. Now we're going to the Q&A session. As I open here my gadget, I will ask a question to Silvano.
Se os outros quiserem também comentar, será muito bem-vindo.
I think we have 5 minutes. I thought I would have more. So please give me a discount.
Deram desconto aqui, mas tudo bem.
Question, Silvano. So what is the main difference between a fuel cell for a vehicle or for household usage? I know there's a project in Japan for an entire borough with fuel cells to convert electricity to residential applications. We're talking about basic technologies, so light vehicle, heavy vehicle, maritime. The manufacturing processes are very similar, but engineering involved are very different because they vary according to the necessity and with the attributes that are more necessary for the applications. And if we have a light application, vehicle application, the size of the batteries are important, but in a residential application, the size of the batteries are not too important. And other attributes that must be weighted to ponderate the technologies and the methods of production.
Muito obrigado. E agora uma pergunta para o senhor. Muito obrigado.
A question to Mr. João Irineu, and the other ones, they can answer if they will. What is the level of safety of a truck, running around with 12 cylinders of hydrogen?
Escutando bem agora?
O senhor, por favor, ou o senhor
if you will, João Irineu, or if you want to answer. Well, I will let Magalhães to answer because he deals better with heavy vehicles. Please, Mr. Francisco Magalhães. This is a recurring question, and I think it's worth it to clarify. Yes, this is a relatively interesting question because we can combine several safety themes. We may say that all the hydrogen zone is produced with impact sensors and fire sensors and leak sensors. And if we have some risk phenomenon, those sensors are responsible to release all the hydrogen to the atmosphere, and naturally we don't have any explosion. We have that image from movies, the vehicles crashing and exploding, and in the cutting edge hydrogen systems, explosions like that from the movies, they just can't happen. And we have some specific features for safety. So we have the hydrogen tanking safety systems, and we have the vehicle systems, vehicle safety systems, supportive driving, supporting safety features, giving some support to the passengers and drivers, mitigating or avoiding totally risks and consequences of an incident or an accident. Well, just complementing, the vehicles, they pass through lots of homologation approval tests. And we have different feeding systems. And today's safety features are very robust to protect vehicles regarding hydrogen usage. And we have another question here. We have 1 minute. The question and maybe the final remarks from everyone. And each one of you can reply and do your final remarks. So, cost benefit ratio, if the costs are competitive enough today, or if not, in which point we would be able to have this cost effectiveness favorable regarding costs and the application of fuel cells in general. Well, let me talk about commercial vehicles to give you a more solid example. So the capital cost of a fuel cell for a vehicle, a wagon, a train, truck, is superior to the traditional equivalent technologies, so no doubt. But the overall cost of property is, it's relative. So if you start with the current conditions and $4 to $5 per kilogram for the hydrogen, you can have a tie, and even you can overcome the cost benefit relationship. But during the lifespan, you may have, based on the predictions, the future can be brilliant for us. And the capital cost, each day more it decreases, and look at the values and project those to little bits to superior costs, and by the second half of the decade, and then you can forecast yourselves. Mr. João Irineu, please. And quickly, well, yes, very quickly, our responsibility is huge. We have four things at hand: industry, government, academia, and the users. So we have these four things, and the system will be held balanced with only three of them working. This is very risky because it will be an imperfect system. We need to keep these four things connected. It's a responsibility for all of us to keep the system balanced and effectively do the transition to happen. We have a unique opportunity and we can't waste it. So please, Mr. João Irineu, you can comment these costs benefit relationship and then final remarks. Okay, so I think the last answer, he has two very important points. The total cost ownership and today's assessment is not fair because of the volumes. We have production volumes that are infinitely superior to other means, and this equation needs to be addressed, but it will only be when the volumes are increased. And secondly, so balance between environment, social aspect, and economic aspect. It's fundamental. We need to seek for solutions that are balanced. And for this, we need to pass through a transition stage from the internal combustion engine, so the current status quo, using biofuel, passing through electrification, hybridly and jointly, and migrating definitely to something electric. That's the stepping up pathway, either from the private, academia, governmental points of view, and we have an energy matrix that allows us to do this gradually and with balance. That's the final remark. Thank you for the invitation. So thank you for your participation that honors us. And I pass the floor to Mr. Francisco Magalhães to comment about the cost and then final remarks as well, please. Well, what Silvano said, so this $5 rule per kilo, it's a barrier that it's the key point that's defining this transition. And we have a cost of maintenance for electric vehicles that is very, very low comparing to the gas or diesel vehicles. Another important aspect is that energy transition, it's a process, and it cannot be done alone. We have lots of variables, and we have we need to rebuild the capacity on the manpower, for example, and in the last 3 to 4 years, the prices practiced for the fuel cells, and as explained in that graphic, lowered radically, and the amount of applications of the fuel cells in terms of infrastructures, in terms of mobility, it's a low scale change, making the investor making the endeavor to be more profitable. We'll have new types of tanks. We'll have these stack arrays. So the batteries are auxiliary to the stacks, and this scale economy will allow the decrease on costs. And talking about the current reality, for example, we have in German the electric mobility through batteries. It's not interesting anymore because the German operator during the more severe winters, they have severe hinders to the battery run vehicles, and we need a scale economy that will need to help these lowering in the cost and more versatility in terms of applications. It will increase the demand on hydrogen production, and we'll have a challenge to produce green hydrogen and these around $5 per kilogram. It will be the greatest challenge to implement, and that will effectively guarantee that demystification on the technology were associated to the theme. So just to wrap up my message and not to take too long, that effectively we are in an energy transition that mandates us to change the paradigm. And we are working with operators that are defining the products by themselves. It's an integral solution where all the stakeholders have an active role. And obviously the European processes are being boosted, either in infrastructure, either and the support and facilitation and infrastructure, environmental licensing, for example. And then it will help the energy transition, compensating the difference between CAPEX and OPEX, and between diesel and gas, and also the CAPEX difference with the hydrogen vehicle. If we look at what is important in terms of concept, from transition mobility, the natural gas is not interesting anymore because of the emissions, and in a certain way it leveraged the transition from one technology to hydrogen. I can give you an example. In the Spanish market for zero emissions, it allowed that subsidies from the government for zero emission fleet. And it will be tempting that cars, battery-run cars, they have even lower capex. We have a lot of bureaucracy, and we have the urban realities. The costs in the big cities, the life costs in the big cities are increasing. People are migrating to the city margins, or the peripheral area of the cities, and it's increasing the demand for the technology. And thank you, Mr. Francisco Magalhães, and I will quickly quickly add up. I've asked about an interstate bus line running through 400 kilometers, ramping up an altitude of 800 meters with a 35-degree temperature. I was in doubt, but now I've been persuaded that hydrogen would be better in these conditions because of the weight of a battery, and I'm convinced that the best solution for the implementation of the interstate transportation is hydrogen, due to distance, due to temperature, due to the demand of the ramping per course. I think I'm a good student, and now I invite all the players from the industry to do this, and I would like to thank Bill Eric and Stellantis, and well, all you from this panel, please come to Ceará to do business. And thank you for the audience. You are the reason why we are here. Thank you for all lecturers for this incredible panel with all informations. And now we have a break. And please, we'll have half an hour for networking, to visit all the stands, and we will get back punctually 4:30 p.m. Brazilian time. Thank you very much. See you in a bit, in half an hour.